Okay, let's take a look at radical equations. The nice thing about these types of problems is that you already should know how to solve an equation. It's really just a matter of working your way towards x to get x by itself. Now, I like to think of it as kind of taking away the outer pieces and kind of chopping in towards the inside and slowly getting rid of stuff till you get x by itself. And just remembering opposites, like the opposite of adding is subtracting, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And here's a new one: the opposite of a square root is squaring something. So let's start at it. I see this -10 that's way on the outer edge of the square root. So it looks like I should get rid of that first. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides since it's negative. That's going to cancel this out. And so I'm left with a square root of 2x plus 1 is equal to -5 plus 10 is 5. Well, I still see the x is trapped inside, but notice it's trapped inside of this square root. I can't do any operations until I get rid of the square root. So what's the opposite of a square root? Well, that would be squaring something, but whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other to keep the equation balanced. So the square root and the square cancel each other out, and I have 2x plus 1 equals 25. So now I'm pretty much down to just a normal equation. If I want to get x by itself, you have to first get rid of the 1. So we're going to subtract that on both sides. And we have 2x equals 24. And then to get rid of the x, we just divide, or to get rid of the 2, we just divide both sides by 2. And there you have it. X equals 12. We are done. So that is a radical equation. You're just working your way towards the inside to get x by itself and just using opposites to get rid of pieces until you have the x by itself. Now, not all of them are straight up radicals though. Some of them have rational exponents like this one. So how do you go about this way? Well, I still am going to approach it the same way. X is trapped in the inside of this parentheses. We got to slowly chop things away to get to it. Now, you might be looking at what's further outside, the 3 or the 2. Well, you always want to get rid of addition and subtraction first. Multiplication is a little bit closer to it. So I'm going to get rid of the 2 by adding 2 to both sides. So we have 3 times the parentheses x plus 5 to the 2/3 power equals 48. Well, now what do we do? Well, I can't quite break into this parentheses. Even though x is in the parentheses, I can't break into the parentheses until I get rid of the 3. It's like the 3 is guarding the parentheses. But I can divide both sides by 3. Since it's 3 times the parentheses, we can divide by that 3. So that at least moves that out of the way. So now we have x plus 5 to the 2/3 power equals, 16. Well, again, x is still trapped inside that parentheses, and I can't get into the parentheses till I somehow get rid of 2/3. Well, if you guys notice over here, I was able to raise both sides to the same power. So what if I raise this whole thing to a certain power? Now, what power would get rid of 2/3? Well, what we talked about in class is that if you ever multiply something by its reciprocal, it turns it into a 1. So if I raise this to the reciprocal power, 3/2 power, look what ends up happening. The 3 cancels with the 3 here. The 2 cancels with the 2 here. It's a way of canceling out or turning it into a power of 1. So I'm going to raise this 16 to the 3/2 power as well, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. But what we did here is we got rid of the exponents. So we have x plus 5 is equal to now 16 to the 3/2 power. And we learned recently that with rational exponents, whatever the denominator is, that's actually the type of root that you're taking over the number. And the numerator remains as the exponent. So it's the square root of 16 to the 3rd power. Now, we're going to just finish up by simplifying this side. We have x plus 5 equals. Now, the square root of 16 is 4, but the square root of 16 is more specifically plus or minus 4. Since we're solving, we want to think of all possible solutions for x. And when you take the square root of 16, a positive and -4 are those different options. So make sure you include the plus or minus. I still want to raise that to the third power. So if I continue to simplify, I get x plus 5 equals plus or minus 64. Now, I want you guys to recognize that because of this plus or minus, we actually have two different equations that are being formed. The first equation is x plus 5 equals the positive 64. And the other equation is x plus 5 equals the negative 64. So when you see that plus or minus, it actually gives you the option of two different answers. Now I'm going to finish up by subtracting 5 on both sides, and we get x equals, let's see, 64, 63, 2, 1, 60, 59. Sorry, I had to do a little bit of math in my head. And then I have to subtract 5 on both sides here, and we get x equals, what is that, negative 70, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 79. Wait, no. What is that? Negative 64, negative, oh, that's negative 69. Sorry, I'm totally looking up this wrong. Brain fart moment. So negative 64 and negative 5 is a negative 69 as the final answer there. Okay, so there you have it. Radical equations and